"No, sir." Mick stared at the man until the cop turned and began studying one of the pictures in heavy gold frames that lined the hall. The paintings were mostly of women lying naked on beds, or of satyrs romping with nubile young ladies. This particular painting was of a man with a human torso and the legs and horns and ears of a goat, chasing two naked girls whose breasts and pubic areas were hidden by tree branches. "They're waiting for you," the cop told Mick, without taking his eyes from the painting. "His name's Pan." "Who?" "The man in the painting." "I never saw anybody who looked like that." "You suppose he's real?" The patrolman hooked his thumbs over his belt. Mick frowned, wondering if the officer were really that dumb. He was young and hadn't been in the force long. Mick could tell by the new coat with its gleaming brass buttons. But then all the buttons gleamed. No policeman would go on duty with tarnished buttons. He wondered how long the patrolman had worked the beat on Holiday Street, the center of Denver's tenderloin. Maybe not long. The young officer would find out soon enough about the goats in the whorehouses. Mick, an older police officer, had come out of the door at the end of the hall and was gesturing to him. Detective Sergeant McCauley put his handkerchief into his pocket, and without a glance at the rest of the pictures in the whorehouse art gallery, he entered the room. "Cronin?" Mick acknowledged the officer who had gestured to him. Then he turned to a second man and said, "Doctor." The coroner was tall, ascetic, his face and hands with their long fingers an unnatural white. He dressed in a long black coat, and he himself looked like Death. In fact, that was what he was called, Dr. Death. The man gave a single dip of his chin to acknowledge Mick, then turned his glance to the woman lying on the bed. Mick had seen dead whores before, seen the lifeless faces ravaged by drugs and liquor and disease, faces and bodies that no longer attracted men, and so the girls had ended their lives with laudanum or arsenic. Those were usually the crib girls, the lowest rank of prostitute. However, girls who might have started out in a parlor house like this one, then gone downhill. It wasn't often that an inmate of one of the better brothels took her life, although it sometimes happened at Christmas, when she started thinking about home, a home she couldn't go back to, or maybe a home she'd never known. He'd seen the bodies of prostitutes bruised from beatings, too, scratched or sliced with knives. But he'd never seen anything like this. When he'd been sent to investigate the death of a prostitute, he'd assumed she'd taken her own life. But this was no suicide. The woman lay on her back on an iron bed, her arms folded across her chest. She was covered with blood. Blood was everywhere, on the floor, the bed, splattered on the walls. Drops of blood were scattered across the picture of a bowl of fruit, making it appear as if one of the plums had burst and was dripping its juice. But mostly the blood was on the body of the dead whore and on the sheet beneath her. The woman was dressed in only a torn wrapper, which would have been sliced by a knife as the killer attacked her. The garment had been pulled across the woman to cover her body, although it hadn't covered much. She was small, maybe 5 feet 2 inches, and trim, her skin firm. "Doesn't look like a suicide," Mick said. "Murder, plain and simple. 8 stab wounds, not counting the ones on her hands and arms where she tried to defend herself. She got 2 in her neck," Dr. Death said. "Most vicious killing of a woman I ever seen. She looks like a pound or 2 of dog's dinner." "She died like that on the bed?" Mick asked. He frowned. The body's position was unnatural. "Not like that. My guess, she fell on top of the bed, and whoever done it to her put her legs up like that and crossed her arms over her. I never saw arms folded that way on a dead woman outside of a coffin. And her robe? It's been pulled across her." Mick looked into the face of the woman. He'd worked Denver's tenderloin for 10 years.